Today in this video, we're going to be taking a look at Halls of Atonement routing. The other day I put out a poll on YouTube, and an overwhelming amount of players said that routing is probably the biggest thing that they struggle with in Mythic Plus. So I'm hoping to do a series for basic routing for over the next week or two, talking about each of the dungeons and some strategies that you can use or mobs you can look out for, and hopefully provide some routing tips as well. And of course, I'm going to try to have side-by-side footage to showcase what I'm exactly talking about, so you can see not only an MDT, which is an in-game add-on, but also footage from game. So starting off the dungeon, you're going to be seeing these two dark blades will run forward right when you cross this bridge. And generally what you're going to do is you're going to end up running into them and tagging them. And what a lot of groups do is that you want to use Lust on cooldown. So you're going to drag these dark blades all the way down to this pack here, pulling the shard, the collector, and also these groundskeepers. Now this is a pretty big first pull. There's going to be 3 total casters in here. As a tank, you really want to keep an eye out for these dark blades. They apply this thing to you called Anima Tainted Armor, which is a stacking debuff that allows or causes you to take increased damage from all sources. So healers should look to dispel this, but the other problem is that there's multiple obliterators who apply this curse or mark of obliteration. This has to be dispelled as well. So as a tank, you want to try to use some of your defensives because your healer is going to be allocating their resources for dispel to this pack on their DPS most likely. So once this pull goes down, by the time it goes down, I should say, this Houndsmaster should have reached this point pretty much, and it might actually even come into this pull. So if that happens, it's not a big deal. Generally, things are going to be dead already. You're going to focus down the Houndsmaster, and then I recommend having like a cooldown recovery pull, and you're going to pull these obliterators into the pack. In terms of this mob, these mobs are very annoying to move, but not only are they annoying to move, they cast this thing called Loyal Beasts, which causes the Gargants to deal 200% increased damage for 20 seconds. So this is scary. You definitely want to make sure you are kicking this at all costs, and then they're going to randomly shoot targets. So just be a little careful on that. Once that pull goes down, you can then do like another big-ish pull. So what I like to do is I grab this Obliterator and Darkblade. Now, I think these are actually swapped in-game. I believe the Obliterator is the further mob, but you're going to want to make sure you get a kick on its first Wicked Bolt, so it moves with you. You're going to grab these Groundskeepers and this Houndsmaster with the 2 Gargants. This Groundskeeper will also come into the pull. It's not a big deal. You'll blow this pack up. Once this pack goes down, you're then going to go into this next area. You're going to grab this Darkblade, Collector, and Obliterator with this Collector and Shard of Halkias number 2. And of course, these Groundskeepers. Now, a nice little strategy I like to try to utilize is you can actually line of sight on this corner right here. And these mobs, if they are casting, or if you have like a Houndsmaster still alive for some reason, it'll all kind of funnel in and just stand in this corner. Once this pack goes down, the next thing I like to do is then I grab this stair pack. So you're going to run along the kind of like the stone path. You're going to pull this pack, which has a single kick in it. It's this Obliterator. So as a tank, I like to just kick this early. And then I'm going to tag this pack that's out here. Now, the thing about this pack is it has a Houndsmaster and it has another Obliterator, which is a caster. But you can use this little thing right here to line of sight the mobs together. So the Houndsmaster and this Obliterator will run out. This Obliterator, despite being kicked, if its lockout fades, it'll still run up to you and just chill there. And so then you can use this kind of pillar to line of sight mobs to keep them nice and stacked if a mob happens to like disengage out or get knocked out or anything like that. Once you finish this pull, once you finish this pull, I then like to jump down into this area down here. And depending on like patrols, you might mix up how you pull this area. So I like to never really pull more than 1 Houndsmaster at a time. And there's 2 patrols down here that we're going to end up pulling. If this pack is close, generally what you can do is you can pull this pack with these mobs here. And then what I'll generally do is I'll grab a slasher, whether it's this one or this one. Slashers aren't too terrible. The big thing you're keeping an eye out for is this Stone Fist. It's a knockback on the tank that does a lot of physical damage. But if you position yourself on the staircase here, the mob will never actually knock you back. You'll just get knocked basically into the stairs, and you have to watch out for the frontal as well. Besides that, I find that this pull is pretty tame, and you can mix it up. So if this happens to get pulled, then you just drop this, or vice versa. So let's assume you pull this one. Your next pull will then be, I don't know why this is getting so scattered. Your next pull will then be patrol these two mobs, and then you can grab these groundskeepers. Essentially, our goal is to never pull more than one Houndsmaster and try to keep casters low. Once that pack goes down, you'll then head into your final shard pull. And this is where you'll be grabbing a lot of this final trash. So this pull is going to be fairly similar to the first pull up here, except you're going to have two collectors to deal with, which I, for some reason, don't think... no, it might be actually two. So there's going to be a lot of kicks in this pull. The Siphon Life you generally want to save a CC for, and allocate your kicks and interrupts to the Wicked Bolts. If you kick the Siphon Life, it's like then the bolts are going to start spamming. But if you interrupt this with any form of CC, they won't recast until the cooldown is available again. Once that shard pull goes down, you now have a little bit of time before Halkias becomes available to pull. It's about, I don't know, 30 to 45 seconds or something like that. I might be making that up. It might be 10 seconds, but it feels like a long time. So what I like to do is then grab this slasher, and this will help keep the boss room clear. No one will accidentally body pull this, and you'll pull it with this pack here. Now, the focus in this pack is really to get the Houndsmaster down before anything else. One thing to note about the Houndmasters as well that I forgot to mention is that when they are in range of these Gargans, it's 20 yards. These mobs take 25% reduced damage when they're near a Houndsmaster. So the Houndsmaster is going to keep the Gargans alive longer. So killing the Houndsmaster quickly will allow you to finish off the Gargans eventually, or faster. Once that goes down, you might still have a little bit of time before Halkias pulls. I then like to grab this Houndsmaster with these Groundskeepers. This will put you at 65%. And then finally, I don't know why I have Halkias pulled. You're going to finish it up with these two mobs. Now, there's two things you can do here, and this really comes down to your comfort level as a tank or your coordination as a group. So you can end up pulling these two mobs onto boss. That is fine. The only thing you need to look out for is that the tank is going to be taking more damage from the tainted armor, and you're going to have to kick some bolts. If you're able to do that, and you can do this by yourself as a tank, or your group can help you out, or you can just kind of lump this in to this pull here. So it really depends on your, really your own comfort level. So for the time being, I'm probably going to pull this onto boss. And this is going to put you at 67% count. So we've gotten a lot of our count up to this point. These collectors here, by the way, are fake. They don't exist. They're going to disappear once Halkias becomes available to pull. So Halkias goes down, and now we're going to go onto the right side. And the reason we go right side is because we're trying to avoid these Reavers. These Reavers are really nasty. I'd like Blizzard to nerf them. They're too powerful. These Mortal Strikes are insane. They deal a ton of physical damage, and then they cause you to take 50% reduced healing for 6 seconds. Mortal Strikes are bad enough. 50% healing reduction is insane. So I'd like Blizzard to actually fix that, but coming back to the route, I like to grab this pack at the top of the stairs, and you're going to tag these ankle biters when they're about in front of this pack. So when the mobs are right about here, you can tag them, and they'll come in, and then that gives you like a couple extra targets to hit. They should die pretty quickly. These Eviscerators also need a change. I don't like that their Hurl Glaive is instant, and you can't see who they're targeting. It also cleaves, so if you have range, this is actually super free, but I'd like to see them add a targeting system for this, because this becomes super lethal in hierarchies if you're not using defensives proactively. After this pack goes down, I like to pull this Eviscerator pack and these Groundskeepers. Kind of same deal here. This is kind of a cooldown recovery pull because there's only one little set of group damage going on. And then you're going to pull this pack of 4. This is going to put you at 80.31% count. Then what I do is we AFK for a second, and then these these slashers eventually turn to stone. So they become dormant. They can't be pulled. You can run past them without invis, and you can actually then skip past them into the room. Now, it does take a couple of seconds. You do have to wait a little bit, but it's actually, I find that the time save is worth it. And then this will put you at, so you're at 80.31. You need roughly 82% count going to the final area for all the trash to make sense. Now, there's a couple of options you can do. You can either tag one of these slashers, and you can pull it into boss. You can do the slasher by itself, or If someone happens to body pull it, you just play it. Or if you're able to successfully skip them, you can always pull slashers later in the run. And so what we're going to do is we're going to assume that we're going to skip these successfully. And so we're going to pull boss. So once we're here, we have 80% count. Something you can then do is you can pull this room back into the boss room. And then you can pull this pack with one side slasher. And this will give you a nice 5 target count. This puts you at 93.82. You'll pull boss, and then you'll finish this up by pulling the final mini boss of the dungeon, which puts you at 100% and some change. So I like this route a lot. This is what I have been running in most of my keys, just in pugs. Now there's some strategies that I might implement running with a pre-made group versus this, but I think this is a really good starting place. It gives you a lot of your count earlier on. This skip is probably the most difficult thing to do because it requires good timing from like this patrol. These mobs both have to freeze, and no one can body pull this pack. If any of those things happen to go wrong, it's fine. You're just going to be overcount. You can drop this slasher. You can attempt to invis skip if you really want through this, but there's ways to make up time at the end of the dungeon if things happen to go wrong. And then that'll you'll finish up the dungeon and you'll be good. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that route is good. I've had a couple people say that they've ran this route before and it feels really good. I've been running this. I ran this in my keys in week 1. I haven't pushed since, but I'm getting ready to get on with my group here shortly. So hopefully this helps and makes the dungeon make a little bit more sense. Let me know how it is, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.